Welcome to BeTerrific. I'm Michael Artsis. Thanks so much for joining us. We've got Alexi Vandenberg here in studio. He's a great guest. I'm excited about this. And let me tell you why. There are a lot of people who market for the people who are at Comic-Con, right? There are a lot of great illustrators, writers, publishers. There are a lot of great people who make toys and figures and all sorts of gadgets. We heard from a lot of those people at New York Comic-Con, at Comic-Con in general, and those people are all really talented, but without a guy like Lex, nobody knows about those people. Nobody finds out about them. Nobody knows they exist. You don't find out about the toys. You don't find out about the comics. You don't find out about any of this stuff because you're there to market them, and that's how people find out about them. So thanks so much for joining us.
Michael, thank you for having me here. It's awesome.
I just want to know about marketing for companies that, attend Comic-Con. Obviously, they don't exist only to be at Comic-Con. They exist for business purposes, for fulfilling an industry mission and all this stuff. There are a lot of great companies, video game companies. Weta was there. We had Marvel. We had a lot of big companies like that. We had a lot of small companies.
Oh, absolutely. It's amazing to see the diversity that is in the fandom and Comic-Con world, if you want to call it that. I call it the fandom world because it is in many ways a marketing to the fans. I love the fact that we do have this diversity of large companies, small companies, companies that are in many ways mom and pop stores that have built and or marketing their products to fans. What we do is we help accomplish that.
What's amazing is that even on the hugest level, it seems like it's still like a mom and pop and a family, a community. And that's what's great about the whole community is that it still remains a community. We had, Sir Richard Taylor on from, Weta. And still to this day, they started in a garage, him and his wife and one other guy, and to this day they are kind of like a mom and pop organization. They're accessible, they sign autographs, they take pictures. They can't even believe the fact that they are doing all that, and they're part of and help build this community. It's really amazing.
That's the joy of being within the fandom community. Is that it is in many ways a community first, but it is also an entrepreneurial community. The reason that we're fans, the reason that I started my company, the reason that many people start their companies is because they are interested in giving or promoting their material to people as an act of creation.
It seems like there aren't. The interesting thing is it seems like everybody wants to help each other for the most part, right? And it seems like it promotes so many positive things, the whole community. You're talking about cosplay, people being able to be themselves, who they are, not being afraid to embrace, all these different things. And they get to have fun. And it's a lot of fun. To me, it brings me back to like being a kid. All I want to do is play with, Mutant Mania or a video game now that I saw at Comic-Con and have fun. And I think everything's bright and fun, and it's pretty awesome.
Oh, absolutely, and that's the joy of it, is that it is fun.
What are the challenges to marketing companies like this? Because there is this, in the reality of it, there is this thing where it's not 100% mainstream yet.
It is not 100% mainstream, but it is getting there. I made a comment not that long ago that who would have thought that 10 years ago, if I went out and I said, gee, Iron Man and Black Widow and Captain America would be household names, that would not exist. So we're becoming more mainstream. But the interesting part is that all of these creative properties, they're becoming, they're reaching out into a world, into a community of fandom that is actually growing. And that growth is really being fueled by new ideas and new products, and that's more for the soup, but it is a great deal of fun.
I think it's a very engaged audience, it's a very loyal audience, but yet it doesn't seem like corporate America has really decided to take hold in it, which part of me thinks that's interesting and that is eventually going to happen, and why hasn't it happened? On the other hand, it's kind of nice because it's almost like how baseball was when we were kids and maybe even before that, right? There were no signs on the outfield wall, and it was still America's pastime. Now, every pitch is brought to you by Alka-Seltzer.
That's very true, and I didn't use the baseball analogy, but that's actually very much the case. I think the reason that corporate marketing hasn't come into fandom to a great extent is because they look at fandom and they don't understand the community aspect of it. They don't understand what they're in fact looking at, and they don't understand that the fandom community in and of itself is a group that has as much money in terms of disposable income as your sports fans, and are within that same target demographic, and are in many ways more willing to part with their disposable income for those things that they are passionate about. Marketing to the community is, in my opinion, a very difficult proposition for a corporate entity. And actually, that's how Rabid Fanboy marketing came about, is we wanted to market for the fans, by the fans.
I mean, I think that's so interesting. I think you're right, that corporate America can't just come in and say, hey, we're going to market to, you know, the community. I think they'd have to hire somebody like you
Yes.
at rabidfanboy.com because the reality is they have to understand the community. They have to be part of it. I mean, we're all geeks. It's easy, right? We can, you know, we can participate because we want to participate. But if you don't necessarily have that desire, but you still want to market, it makes it harder. Does it make it harder to market some of your clients if you can't latch on to corporate relationships and things like that?
It all depends on the client. Some of my clients, I have a very large, diverse roster of clients, from musical acts like the Nathaniel Johnstone Band, which does steampunk music.
That's pretty cool.
Which I love them. I love them to death. Ranging from them all the way to Starfall, which is a television production being put on by John Ellis, and we actually just signed the star of Grimm, Damian Puckler, as our star.
Awesome. How did you get into marketing?
I got into marketing the long road. I actually had another business that was heavily involved in promotions and marketing, and I essentially sold that business and didn't know what to do with myself. And I decided that I was going to build Rabid Fanboy in many ways, essentially as a mom and pop operation, small, and it just took off, and I was very happy to be re-embraced by the community.
Essentially, you started this as a kid, though. Maybe not started the company or the marketing aspect, but you started your fandom as a kid, right?
Oh, yes. My claim to fame before Rabid Fanboy was that I was the youngest kid in Central Florida fandom.
Wow.
I used to go to Star Wars and Star Trek conventions all the time. Things like the SCA, which is the Society for Creative Anachronism. They are essentially people who decide that Ren Fair is not quite Ren Fair enough, so they take it to the extra level.
What's the craziest thing you've ever seen? I mean, you've been going to these cons and these events and these festivals for a long time. What's the craziest thing you've ever seen?
Oh God, that's like asking me what my favorite book is. There's so many.
Could probably. Well, I've done a lot of different things. I could probably narrow it down to 5.
Okay. The guy who had he had a steampunk powered robot that was about 50 feet tall.
That's impressive.
He actually brings it out still to the Steampunk World Fair in Parsippany. It's a he calls it his gigantic robot. I'm like, yes, you have a gigantic steam-powered robot. I have nothing to say about that.
Yeah.
From the gentleman who at one convention, he actually, he walked around pretty much with it was a beautiful set of armor that I was like, where did you get that? He's like, I made it myself.
Isn't that amazing? These guys make, talking to people at Comic-Con, they make their own costumes. They spend years. I mean, one guy I talked to spent the last year and a half making his costume for Comic-Con 2014.
That's
dedication.
Dedication.
And that gets back to, you said people are, they're spending their expendable income, which is interesting because I'm getting back to the marketing point for a second, but like when you go into the mall around the holiday season, you count how many bags people have, right?
Yes.
The place could be packed, but you count the bags. And lately, the last few years, the economy's been down. There's no secret about that. And there have been a lot less bags. At Comic-Con, everybody paid a lot of money to be there. You don't pay money to enter the mall. They paid a lot of money to be there. They paid a lot of money for their parking and transportation. The food there is exorbitant, not like the mall. The mall's reasonably priced for food. And everyone had a bag with something in it that they purchased there, an autograph, a picture, a book, a comic book, a movie, a DVD, a cartoon, a video game, whatever it was, toys. They had it, and it was really, to me, super impressive how they were spending, how these people, these guys, these gals who dress up, who do all this fun stuff, who have a lot of fun, were spending.
They're spending, and they are spending on things that they are passionate about.
Yeah.
The marketing world is no longer about just getting your name out and getting your branding. It's about the passion. It's about the engagement. And that's actually where the secret buying of fandom exists. It's in the passion. It's in the fact that I love, for instance, Star Wars. And I go there and I can get a Qui-Gon Jinn lightsaber, the official hilt, and it looks spectacular, and I'm passionate about it.
Have you ever seen Plastic Galaxies?
No, I haven't.
You got to watch this movie. We interviewed Brian Stillman, the filmmaker, at Comic-Con, and Brian's a pretty cool guy, and the movie's phenomenal. And it's about it's a documentary about all the Star Wars toys through the years, and it's really unbelievable. It's called Plastic Galaxies. But what you're saying is the truth, and I think it's super cool to be able to have like a replica of, something that was actually in a movie or in a cartoon or whatever you want. I remember calling up, this is going to sound crazy, but I called up Bulgari when Minority Report came out, and I wanted the watch that Tom Cruise wore in the movie. I thought it was the coolest thing. Now we might be able to get that with one of these wearables that are coming out.
Oh, absolutely.
Especially the one with the fruit on it, or the one from Moto looks a lot like that. But back then they were like, that was all CGI, you're crazy. That doesn't exist. I was like, I want it.
Well, what we're beginning to see is, like I said, the diversification of the culture. We're beginning to see that more of the science fiction aspects of fandom are becoming true. And it's not just the Captain Kirk flip phone, which I had one for years just because, well, it was a Captain Kirk
When you
flip
get to
phone.
see these props, are you ever disappointed by the quality? Because they're really like Scotch tape and bubble gum together, I find a lot of times. And on TV or in the movies, especially back in the 70s, 80s, they looked really good. TV hit a lot more than it does today. And now you get them in your hand, or you see something, not necessarily what you're buying, a replica of it, but actually like the one, when you go to some of these events and you see the one that was used in Star Trek or Star Wars or whatever it is.
Oh, absolutely. Some of the props, particularly from the way back when, they honestly are so plastic that you pick them up and you're like, wow, this is incredibly light.
Yeah.
What I'm beginning to find interesting is that there's now a market in prop building that is so intricate and so ornate, particularly for new productions, because you're beginning to have people who want the replicas.
Right.
So things are being developed.
Well, and you have HD and 4K, which...
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I used to make the joke that I watch Star Trek now, the old school original series Star Trek, and I watch the space scene, and then I watch Will Shatner and Ricardo Montalban get ready to have a fight, and then two people who are entirely different have a fight in the same room. But exactly, with the HD, with the quality of digital, with the quality of everything that's going on, props are becoming more intricate, more ornate, but they are also being made with part of the marketing in mind. Every piece actually has an idea that can be, possibly marketed out to fandom, particularly in these series.
Well, no, that's really awesome. I think it's great for the fans. Look, this is no different than a Yankee fan wearing a Yankee jersey or a Giants fan wearing a Giants jersey to school or to work or whatever. It's wearing your colors, so to speak. And it's super awesome. I love it. Where do you think the future of marketing in this, I'd say this genre or this community is going?
Well, I think that all depends on if fandom still continues to diversify, which it is. It's becoming more and more diverse as time goes on. we're beginning to see, different aspects of fandom come in. We're beginning to see more women, thankfully, in fandom.
Now, do you say that thankfully because you want equality, or thankfully because you're excited to see women?
I'm a happily married man, but I would have to say that I'm happy to see more women in fandom.
Yeah. Well, I think, look, we're involved a lot in the idea of STEM. We believe in that as well, which is part of the whole geek community, right? Science,
Absolutely.
technology, engineering, and math. It's really important. And, WowWee, who makes these little guys, they're very involved in getting women, young girls, involved in STEM. I think it's just good overall. I love it. I love the idea. And I love how many women I saw at Comic-Con who were really into it and weren't afraid to stand up and say, hey, I'm a geek too.
Absolutely, and we're beginning to see it in gamer culture, which I'm excited to see.
Yeah.
I had a kind of unique experience. Like I said, as a kid, I was the youngest. I was the youngest kid in Florida fandom. But one of the things is that I actually had a gaming group that I was essentially became the game master for.
Wow.
And
what game?
Actually, it was the old fastest Star Trek, the role-playing game, was my very first.
Wow.
And what happened is that we had a group and we had a lot of women. So I didn't actually have that experience. And actually, when I started gaming with other groups and they were essentially all guys, it was actually kind of alarming for me. But I would actually have to say that more women who are using their imaginations in the geek arena, within the fandom arena, is always a good thing. In STEM, my wife is a teacher,
Yeah.
and she's a mathematics teacher, and she says that she's happy to see that there are more girls right now within the grades she teaches that are embracing fandom as an aspect of being proud of themselves and their intellectual accomplishments.
Yeah. No, I mean, it's awesome. It's really, really phenomenal, and I think it's just the next step. What are some tips for people who are trying to market, especially when they start? Like, we met so many people who were like just the infancy of, here's my comic book, or this is my first book, or whatever it is. What is the tip for them to help them spread? The biggest thing is to let people know they exist.
3 things. First of all, your website is wonderful. That's great. I'm going to say that your list in your social media is actually more important than your website. Your website is actually not interactive. Your social media is. So being able to be on social media.
How do you get the social media? Everybody says social media, social media, social media. How do you get it to be engaging and interactive to people?
Make it fun.
Yeah.
Make it entertaining. Make it part of your branding. Actually, ironically, Marvel Entertainment just did one that was actually completely, it was wonderful. They had the Ultron trailer that was going to be released on the next episode of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. Somebody leaked it early. So rather than become draconian about it and so on, what they did is that they went on their website and they said, Agents of Hydra, which is the villainous organization, have leaked it online, so here it is. What a great way of doing that, because
Right.
what they did is that they, first of all, rebranded themselves, made it interactive, and also are incorporating more things
Well, I
into
was
their
even
world.
thinking of, like, you could have a character tweet
Absolutely.
or something. That might be something that's really interesting.
Other things is making it fun. Making it something that is engaging to your fans. One of the things that you can always do is, frankly, say something that you are looking for a idea from the fans, and have the fans interact within your world, within what you are creating, because that feedback is going to be gold. Also, don't take it personal. I say that all the time.
Yeah.
Don't take it personal. Your creation is your baby. It's your sacred cow. But people who tell you, listen, this is a good idea, but this is what I think could be more marketable or a more efficient way to market. Those are things that you should not take personally, but incorporate into your idea and recognize that these are things that people are trying to assist you with.
You're awesome, Lex. I appreciate it. From Rabid Fanboy, how do people find you and get in touch with you?
They can find me on rabidfanboy.com. They can also, we're also on Facebook, we're on Twitter, we're on all the major social media networks.
RabidFanboy.com, Rabid Fanboy on all the social media platforms, including Google Plus?
Yes, we are on Google Plus.
Is that making a resurgence?
Exactly
what I think.
Yeah.
That's exactly what I think. And then my last question to you, just before we let you go, because I know you're super busy. I appreciate all your time.
Thank you for having me.
When you were 9 and you went to that convention, what was the thing you purchased or walked away with?
I walked away with a Leonard Nimoy signed black and white photograph.
Wow, that's pretty awesome. Very amazing. I can't do the Spock. I wish I could.
It's hard. I used to. I can't anymore.
It's really hard.
Yeah.
I know some athletes that can do it because their hands have been broken
hold on.
so many times they do it naturally.
Let me see if I can.
There you go.
There we go.
Look at that.
There we go.
All right, that's Lex.
Right.
It's rabidfanboy.com. I'm Michael Artsis. Thanks so much for joining us on BeTerrific.com. You can check us out, of course, on Twitter, on Facebook, of course on Google Plus as well, because I mentioned that, and it's true. You can go there. And don't forget to download our app in the iTunes, Android, and of course, even the Kindle store. It's BeTerrific.com/app. We'll be live at Engadget Expand 2014, November 7th and 8th. So you're going to want to stay tuned for that content. It's going to be amazing. We've got a great lineup of guests already. And of course, you can find all this stuff out on our site and in our app. Thanks so much for watching. Be terrific.